One Georgia participating school wins $10,000 worth of technology. 96 other lucky classrooms will be awarded a video chat with a guest speaker. Imagine, last year's chats were with Bill Gates and Twitter founder Jack Dorsey, among other top tech industry greats. The time has come to celebrate Computer Science Week, and with students all over Georgia, this year it's going to be the biggest and most historic event ever organized. That's right, it's the Hour of Code and the Georgia Day of Code. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, December 2nd, 2014, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. On this edition, this year in partnership with Code.org, Tag Ed, and Tag, we're presenting the Georgia Day of Code on December 10th, 2014. It's an opportunity for teachers, students, and individuals of all ages to learn more about these machines we use to work, play, and communicate every day. Up to the Tech Talk Georgia Day of Code and the impact of computer science education on Georgia's high schools for tomorrow's digital Georgia economy, as Tino speaks with Georgia State Representative for District 25, Mike Dudgeon, representing the southern part of Forsyth County and the northern parts of John Creek and Fulton. He served as Vice Chair of the Education Committee and now on the Science and Technology, Small Business and Energy, Utilities, Telecom Committees. Prior to taking office at the state on January 10, 2011, he served from 2007 to 2010 on the Forsyth County Board of Education. Representative Dudgeon has bachelor's and master's degrees in electrical engineering, holds 5 U.S. patents, and has been an entrepreneur in the technology business his entire career. In 2010, he joined Alpharetta-based video game startup High Res Studios, where he currently serves as Chief Technology Officer. Find out more about this important initiative and the grassroots teacher-driven campaign whose goal is to reach 100,000 students by the end of the year. And it all begins by signing up to participate in the Hour of Code as Tino Tech Talks with State Representative Mike Dudgeon. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions.
Representative Dudgeon, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today.
Thanks, Gino. Good to be here.
So we have spent quite a bit of time together talking about computer science in our high schools, and you certainly have a passion for this issue. So I know the answer to this, but for our listeners, how did you get involved with the issue of computer science education in Georgia?
Well, Tino, it actually kind of goes back to how I even got in politics in the first place. I'm fundamentally a high-tech entrepreneur. I'm a Georgia Tech grad. I've been working in Alpharetta doing various startups and engineering things for 25 years, and down to politics primarily because of education and a passion for it. And even though the schools in my area are doing a good job, I wanted to work on it and got into the state legislature and got involved in the education committee, sort of looking around the state and saying, what can we really do to make education better in Georgia? What are the things we need to focus on? And technology quickly rose to the top, both technology to deliver top quality instruction was a passion of mine. I've been working on that for several years, but then happened to start talking, I believe, to you and to Chris Klaus and a few other people at the same time about a year ago, and realized that we all were thinking the same thing, which was forgetting technology as a delivery mechanism, how about understanding how to use and to create technology? And looking at the fact that such a very low percentage, less than 1% of high school graduates take any kind of computer science class, because we've just got to fix that, because computer science and programming computers is becoming the de facto language of engineering and science, and looking around the state, how we weren't preparing our kids for that, and then had some meetings with TAG and some other stakeholders, and met quite a bit with Chris Klaus, who's taken a tremendous leadership position in this and used his influence and sphere to help push this, and to sort of made a coalition. And so now we're here today, pretty close to the Day of Code and some other great things.
And the governor's come out in support of having computer science more accessible in the classroom. Just for our listeners, the only way to get a credit for computer science today in our public high schools is you have to take an AP class, and only 101 of our 470-plus schools offer that. So it's, even though there's something I read the other day, Mike, was that for every 4 jobs in programming in Georgia, there's typically 1 or 2 people that can fill those. So we're definitely in crunch time in terms of a need, and I know in your company that's a challenge as well. So we're moving towards something that talks about having computer science in all the high schools. Maybe you want to just talk a bit about, in the ideal world, what we'd like to see.
Yeah, ideally what we want to do is push a tremendous number more kids in K-12 towards computer science as part of their education platform. And so specifically we want to do, one is make computer science and not just AP count as a high school graduation credit, both either as a science or math. In order to do that, we have the AP computer science course already there, which is a good course, but we need to get a regular non-AP computer science course developed and put on the books. Again, we need to get the State Board of Education to go ahead and change the rules to make it clear that computer science will count as a math or science credit. And then also to work on the sort of demand side, if you look at the supply and demand side, I mean, so many of our kids here in state stay in state to go to the university system of Georgia. And right now, the university system of Georgia, as far as entrance to their institutions, requires 2 foreign language credits. And so one thing we're working with the regents to try to get is that, well, maybe a computer science credit is just as good as one of those foreign language credits and really will enable them as an entrance requirement. And so if you get that listed as an entrance, a way to satisfy an entry requirement to our university systems, that will definitely help generate some of that student demand, which will then help feed the process of generating courses and hiring teachers and all the stuff that kind of flows downstream. So those are kind of the different efforts we have. I guess I forgot one, which was also working on ways in order to get it into the younger grades. Not a course, but can we get a day of using one of the online simple programming tools in the middle of a science class, say in the 4th grade, just to get that exposure to light up that excitement in some of the kids.
So you talked a bit about, we touched on the demand side, in other words, the issue with our companies and the need. But from your own perspective, because you've been in the field for a long time, what kind of needs do you see happening today and projecting out for tomorrow? We have to address this issue, as you've said.
Yes, I'm fortunate. My company is a video game company that I'm the CTO of, and being a video game company, we're sort of close to the top of the food chain as far as what computer programmers want to work at. So when I go to hire a computer science type person in their 20s or 30s, usually those people are very excited, a lot of them are, to come work for a video game company.
Right.
And so if they're not already in the industry, then I can steal, like I stole a really good person from another industry a few months ago, because they wanted to move over there. But that position had to be backfilled. And even though I am able to get good people, I'm still getting people from out of state. About half of my hires in the past year have been out of state, so I'd have been easier to hire Georgia people than flying people in from Houston. We're flying a kid in from San Diego next week. So if there were more Georgians sitting here in Georgia with that skill set, it'd expand the pool. And I do know from talking to my peers in industry and other industries is that they're having a hard time filling all of their programming related tasks, and all the industry trade projections and so forth are just showing that getting more and more. Again, as programming becomes not just a job for programmers writing a particular piece of software, it becomes almost a skill, kind of like typing used to be back in the day, as far as a skill needed for a lot of different jobs. So my perspective as somebody here in the high-tech area of Atlanta is that is that we, for certain, don't have enough Georgians with those jobs right now, and it's just going to get worse and worse as time goes on.
Some people listening might think, well, this is really important for the metropolitan Atlanta area and for kids in the metropolitan Atlanta area, but you and I and Chris and the coalition certainly feel that this is important statewide. Let me address that.
Yes, it's an interesting challenge. As a member of Georgia legislature, a lot of times people define legislators in terms of Republican or Democrat. In Georgia, actually a more interesting and usually sometimes more consequential divide is the metro Atlanta and then the rest of Georgia. And we do our best to try to keep those differences as low key as possible and to maintain a healthy relationship. But there's just different challenges. But if you talk to my rural colleagues, what they'll say to you over and over again is, what can you do for my kid in a relatively low wealth county to get a job skill that he can go get a job? And we're starting to build out bandwidth and stuff in some of those communities, and as we know, a lot of these jobs even can be remote. And it's very clear I can make a case to my rural colleagues that computer programming is one of those skills that is almost a guaranteed ticket to a job. And so one part of this equation, though, has been in rural Georgia. They said, well, that sounds great, but my schools don't have access to the high-end equipment, high-end internet quality, and so forth that you metro guys do. So, it's either not fair or it's just too difficult. And one great thing that's happened over the past 3 years is the governor and legislature have put tens of millions of dollars into bandwidth expansion at all the high schools in Georgia, actually all the schools in Georgia, and also a grant to try to get more actual equipment in the classroom. So rural Georgia is starting to catch up on sort of that technology divide, and once those devices and internet capability are there, and you also have the cell companies building up 4G in rural Georgia, once you have that combination, I think at that point you then will be able to come in with this computer science instruction and with a realistic model say, hey, we can get this comp sci education some of your kids, they get interested in it, they take it in technical school, they take it in four-year college, and then they've got a great job skill they can take. And I think that is the one is by trying to catch up rural Georgia on the technology sort of equipment and infrastructure. Once you get through that, I think it's easier to bring and starting to see more acceptance from my rural colleagues in getting those job skills to their people.
Well, we would be remiss if we didn't cover Day of Code while we're on the program here. So, December 10th, you want to say a little something about that?
Yeah, it was interesting. When we had, and you were there, we had sort of, I think, 20 people in a room to brainstorm for a morning about if our goal is to get more kids with computer science education, that's our top-level goal, what sort of tactical and strategic things can we do to make that happen? And one of the ones that actually got very broad, if not unanimous consensus in the room is we need a marketing, a showcase event that promotes awareness, because a lot of times, in this world with so many things going on, actually, ironically, the technology can be so distracting that a lot of times parents, students aren't aware of their options. And a lot of times I think computer science isn't something that's on the top of their mind. So we decided, hey, we can work with the governor's office, work with TAG, work with industry partners, and get a Day of Code to get classroom teachers in the industry to get attention to say, hey, December 10th, we're going to take a little bit of time and actually think about programming, have the kids think about it, it comes to the top of their mind, might trigger a brain cell in a parent somewhere who's about to register a ninth grader next year in high school to say, hey, let me check about computer science in my school and talk to the principal and generate that kind of awareness. Because, again, I think the average person kind of knows that there's need for STEM or technology education, but the specific issue of computer science and programming has really come to light when people have coding skills, which is part of STEM, but it's a very distinct area where you can point very clearly that particular skill set is needed. So we're really excited that TAG and the others are helping us get a lot of awareness on this, which again will help politically, not just with the kids, but also politically help generate awareness that will help us next year as we try to move these policy changes on computer science.
Well, thanks for your leadership on this, Representative Dudgeon, and we are certainly happy to be part of it. It's December 10th, and anybody can participate, so participate at your desk. Come to Junior Achievement that day down at the World Congress Center. The governor will be there to kick this off, and along with the representative and Chris Klaus and Ben Hames and a number of people that are in leadership on this issue. And we're hoping to get well over 100,000 kids involved this year at the local schools and do an hour code or a day of code. And we're looking forward to having this, as Mike said, a major awareness effort. So thank you for being on the call with me today and for your leadership on this issue.
Thanks, Gino. It's great to be here.